with that said, we're gonna do a year-end wrap-up. But one thing that did happen this year that we did want to touch on briefly was recently the Major League Baseball (MLB) decided that they were going to now acknowledge the Negro Leagues as major. So, to put this into context, a commission met, I believe, in 1969. They came up with at the time, 7 major leagues and included all of their records, all their history into the major leagues. Over time, the Negro Leagues have been acknowledged in some minor ways, like they occasionally wear throwback uniforms. There are Negro League players that have been inducted into the Hall of Fame, but they've never been fully integrated into Major League Baseball history. And this now does this. There were a lot of conflicting opinions about this. I just felt like it's a nice gesture, but it feels like it's a little bit too little, too late.
I mean, yeah, it does feel a bit empty and hollow. Like this is something that it feels should have been done a long time ago, but they're kind of doing now. I don't know why they're really doing it now, but yeah, I don't know. There's something about it doesn't feel right. It seems more like a publicity stunt than anything.
Uh, I mean, as a baseball fan, as somebody who grew up with baseball, I don't know. I might get a little long-winded on this, but it's definitely something that I take pride in as a black person who grew up with baseball, who loves baseball. Um, However, I do think there's a level of black people can validate themselves. Whether that be, we talked about the Grammys with Nipsey Hussle and um, things of that nature in the Academy Awards and stuff like that. Whether that's any person of color, specifically black people can validate themselves. And I think to say that the major leagues validated the Negro Leagues in that way is a little bit wrong. But to say that the Negro Leagues were included, I think is also wrong. So basically, I really think that it doesn't matter what the uh, white public thinks about these men that were isolated and were kept away, because they did it for themselves. Um, Now, Negro League players, they, that's the definition of like making your own space. Like we talk about that all the time in like this society. Like black people need to make their own space. Women need to make their own space. Black women, black men need to make their own space. And they were doing that. It may not have looked pretty all the time, but they definitely did that. And I think unless Major League Baseball is gonna acknowledge a wrong that they definitely did to these men, I don't think it really matters. I think in conjunction with the Cleveland baseball team, it's sign of progress, yes, but a sign of progress doesn't mean things have progressed all the way to they need to be. So I feel the same way about the Cleveland baseball team. So um, I think they need to acknowledge a wrong that has been done before we can move on completely.
I agree with you. I think for me, the biggest thing that I've had an issue with is this idea that they have to be acknowledged.
Mm.
We've known this for a while. Negro Leagues have their own museum. I have a Negro League baseball jersey. Growing
Right.
up, I had something handed down from my father. He had a T-shirt with all the Negro League baseball teams and their coaches and their records and this, that, and the third. And like for me growing up, maybe it's because my mom was very big on us knowing Black history. Like I could probably name you. A lot of people don't really truly know how many HBCUs are out here. I think as
Mm.
a kid, like she had me memorize like 50 or 60 names.
Right.
And at the same time, she had me, because I was interested in sports, learning about Josh Gibson, learning about Cool Papa Bell, learning about Satchel Paige, learning about all these guys. And if we're going to truly do them justice, we got to start really, really pushing out certain ideologies, certain barriers for kids in baseball. Like, that's where the real work is, making it so that Black kids feel included in baseball. Because I think Major League really fumbled the bag. I forget what year it was where they had the Chicago team out of Chicago in the League World Series, and they had Monet Davis in the League World Series at the same time. And I love the League World Series. That's one of my favorite things to watch every year because I like it. Like if I have a son one day or a daughter one day, I want to take them up there. But I say that just to say, like, the real work, the legacy is including Black people in baseball, because I think to acknowledge Negro Leagues baseball is to also acknowledge that there are a lot of Black people that feel excluded from baseball because of what you did back then, because of the financial barriers that exist today, for a number of different reasons. And we're not talking about Afro-Latinos, we're talking about American Black people, because there's a good number of Afro-Latinos in baseball. There could be more, but there's a decent amount. American Black people, not really there.
And I take you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you can go. That's.
I was gonna say I'll take you one step further. If we're talking about the whole diaspora, how they treat the Afro Latino players, trying to buy them a dime a dozen, when it comes to not giving them draft capital, not giving them draft rights. We could talk about that too. And also, like, for every Kyler Murray, we talk about African Americans. For every Kyler Murray, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of Black kids that feel like they can't make it. So I think we need to definitely do that work, as you said, to make sure it doesn't just to extend the legacy of the Negro Leagues to today, for sure.
But in just like a comment, is there any like skepticism that this might just be a one and done thing? Like, because we do know that MLB this year haven't had the greatest of press, with how they handle COVID, the World Series ending with a guy of COVID trying to get back on the field, the Cleveland Indians, Cleveland football team fiasco. I want them to follow through with this and give Negro League the actual respect it deserves. But a part of me is kind of thinking in the back of my head, this might just be some thing that they could like, all right, so we added them to the history books and then kind of just forget about it in like a year or two.
I think I have skepticism with any major sports league, because at the end of the day, they are white-run corporations. That's essentially what they are, and they're large corporations, and I forget who said it, but there's like you don't make enough. You can't make that amount of money without having to do something that's morally reprehensible. And it's really hard to do that. And I don't think Major League Baseball got there without cutting corners to an extent. But I do think that they've done certain things, like working with the Jackie Robinson Foundation, like going out and starting these programs. I think It's more about just bringing them to the forefront, because you can't undo the past of the Negro Leagues unless you're about to give all these families a boatload of money that they could have possibly made in the major leagues had it been integrated at that point in time. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what you can do for the Negro League, unfortunately. But you can make it a way so that there's more Black inclusion in the future. Because it's like, for me, like when I kind of compare it to, like, say I went through college and I didn't have the greatest experience at American University. Right. But I don't want any money from American University. Just make it better for the next group of kids. Like, right.
I guess.
So that's where I stand on it. And also going back to the Chicago team with Jackie Robinson Jackie Robinson Little League in Chicago, they got their title stripped or something because one kid out of like 15 didn't live in the right district. When, like, man, like I could tell you the number of Pop Warner teams I played with kids that were too old, too heavy, did not live in the town they said they lived in, and ain't nobody stripped their title. So like we do the selective type of thing. Like they've done that. I forget the kid's name. I believe he was from Cuba. In the Little League World Series, Almonte. I think it was Danny Almonte.
Yep.
He didn't have a birth certificate, or they were unsure about how old he was, so the whole team got stripped. And it's sort of like the NCAA mentality. Like you do certain things, one person does something, and everybody's getting screwed. So,